Now we're going to talk about the sizes of the locks and the grid. So we kind of touched base already, how hers are a little bit bigger than, yours and mine too, but what you're going to see is, the size is really going to depend on the density of the hair, right? We talked about that. How much hair they have, as well as the shape of the head. Is it like a small head, or, the square footage of the head, I would say, is gonna determine the size of the lock, as well as the curl pattern is gonna determine the size of the lock. Now, if, for example, like let's say a 4A texture, the large might look super skinny because there's no texture in the curl, right? It's wavy. So even though, you've maybe selected a big size, it might look like it's really small because there's no body within the lock. I don't know if that makes sense. Then if you have somebody with like a 4C hair type, if you do a small, it might feel thick and fluffy because of the texture within that curl. So it's important to tell your client that your size is really gonna be based on your natural curl pattern. So the more you do it, you're gonna instinctively know how it's gonna turn out based on the curl texture and stuff like that. But in the beginning, you have to give yourself some grace because you might not know, right? So the more you do it, the more heads you do, and not reties. I mean, like new sets, because most reties, by the time they come to you, they're somewhat matured already. So it's going to be very difficult for you to know where they started, right? But those are good because they'll help you to see how the hair is growing out, how the hair is going to look, right? So where you start off, like she was saying, when she started, like they were really like spacey and stuff like that, but now they're full. So it'll, give you knowledge for that. So one thing that we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to do 100 models, each. That's something you're going to be required to do. And that's to get you experienced. And when I say 100, I don't mean reties. I mean new sets. Yeah. New clients. You can give yourself a goal as to how soon you're going to complete those. Everybody's time frame is going to be different based on the amount of time they have available, to do it. But that's something you have to document. And each time you do them, you're going to have to put a number somewhere. And this is just for yourself, for you to see where you started and, where you end. And also it's for your social media, right? Because if you don't have content, you don't have a business, unfortunately, right? Your business is your content is your business. Like, that's it. You can't be using somebody else's pictures on your social media. You can use it as reference to be like, oh, it's gonna look like this, but just generally, on your own page, you want to have your own work eventually. I understand you have to start somewhere, but when you post other people's work, you have to put the credit in there, right? That, okay, taken from, this person, and you have to put inspirational purposes only, so that with time, your client can see, okay, you know what? She's moving somewhere, all right? So they're basically, within the Microlocs, they're like 3 sizes, right? So I have this tool. That's not the one you're going to get though, because, a lady patented this. I can give you a link where you can go and get it on your own. But the one you're going to get is just, basic. It looks like this on both sides, right? This is what I like to use when we're doing the new sets, because you can mark it, right, with like nail polish, like a white nail polish, so that your grids are equal, right? So this one has 3 markings on it, right? So the first marking is would be the dip. So remember I was telling you that when we started, we were making them super, super small. So this was like the size. Really, really, really small. They looked gorgeous. But, you know, the retie was a challenge and they were slipping and sliding. So this was too small, you know, for the majority of our clients. So what we did is now we went in between this size and the next size. So we just a tad bigger. So that's now our small, right? So if you have like a tape measure, this would have been like 3/8 of an inch. So we went up to maybe like 4.5 over 8. So that's what we consider a small. And then the next side would be from here to there. That would be the medium. Okay? And then from there to here, that would be the large. Okay? A 4-inch is the large size, right? So you don't want to go lower than 3/8 for the small. That's this one. Really, really tiny. I don't know if you can see the space between my nails, right? So that's 3/8. And this is super tiny. A person with really, really thick hair can carry it, but they're gonna have a lot of locks, probably a little more than yours. Yeah, it'll be quite a bit. They'll be around 800. That's a lot. Yeah, and that's really the only person that can really carry this size. They have to have like thick hair and a lot of hair. Sometimes people will have thick hair, but their hair is really small, right? I still wouldn't recommend this because it's going to be stringy kind of. So I find a good small is between the small and the medium. So between 3/8 of an inch and 5/8 should be your small, right? You can figure out what works really well for you within that, okay? So that's the small, medium, and large within the Microlocs. Now, when we go into traditional locks, it's the smallest starts with the inch. If it's a traditional lock. So a person that has a large Microloc is borderline Microlocs and traditional locks. So if you do have a client that comes in and they want regular locks, you know you're starting at an inch. It has to be above an inch. Those are now traditional locks, like an inch, inch and a half, inch and, you know, you keep kind of going. It'll be good for you to have one of those combs. Like I have a comb for you, but it's not measured. But there are some combs out there, I couldn't find them, that have like a measure on them. I don't know if you've seen them. Braiders usually use them. You've seen it? I've seen them on Instagram, but they're not in Canada. Maybe I tried. Maybe you can go and try too. I couldn't find any. But you know, like I said, you can measure your tools and use nail polish, the white nail polish, to put your measurements, and then that's what you can kind of use. So we talked about the grid. Within Microlocs, it's only the 2 grids that I recommend. That's what they're using, either a stack grid or a bricklay grid, right? And keeping all your parts the same. Sometimes you might have a client that has different, visibly different density in their head. Mostly in the middle, it's super thick, like right here, right? It's okay to make these smaller or bigger, depending on what you want the desired outcome to be like. If you start off with like say medium, like a medium size around the hairline because the hair is fine, you can consistently do it all the way through. But when you get to the middle, if you want to adjust it to make it look the same, you can make them slightly smaller in the middle, right? Because even though your parting is bigger, it doesn't necessarily mean that the lock, when it grows in, is going to be big. Does that make sense? Because there's not a lot of hair there. But in the middle, if you make the part big and they have a lot of hair, that lock is going to be big. Right? So if you want to adjust it and make sure that, you know, the end result is equal, you can do like a medium and a small, or you can switch it around where you're doing like a small here and a medium, say if they have thinner hair in the middle. Okay? So with time, it'll be good for you to just go on Google and put Microlocs and start visually looking at the pictures and asking yourself the question, what size is this? You're going to see they're different on everybody, but they look the same kind of. But when you look closer on the hairline, that's where you're going to see, but how come her parts are bigger? You know, these ones are smaller, and that's because the density is different. Right? Again, this is the reason why I'm going to recommend you do the 100 heads, because it's a feel thing. I can tell you, but to do it is different, right? So you get to learn that. For the Microlocs, I said there's the stacked grid and the bricklay grid. Then when we now deal with the regular traditional locks, you have more different types. I'm sure you've seen them, right? Now we're going to have the diamond part grid. Yeah, so we're going to play around with those parts for the bigger sections as well. So you have the diamond, you're going to have the triangle, you know, the triangle parts. No, these are now traditional. Yes. Remember how I said, you know, I want you guys to be able to do all types of locks, right? So this is outside of the Microlocs. Now we discussed the sizing, right, of the Microlocs. We have the small, the medium, and the large within the Microlocs. So now that we're talking about traditional locks, the sizes are bigger than an inch, right? So the diamond you're making is bigger than an inch. The triangle you're making is bigger than an inch. You still have the bricklay, you still have this, you know, the stacked method as well with the traditional locks. Then you have dragon scales. I don't know if you've seen those. They're like half moons. Yes, you'll just scoop it, right? You just do a half moon and keep going like that. So when you keep doing a half moon on top of it, now it starts to look like scales, like fish scales, or yeah.
What is it called, sorry?
Dragon scales, or just scales, or half moons, they call them. Then there's free form parts. You just go at it however you want with no direction. Totally fine. That's fine too. Okay, but like I said, for Microlocs, we're focusing on the two. But for traditional locks, you have these other methods, and we're gonna, you know, play with those as well. Now, generally, the diamond parts and the triangle parts, they're good for medium to large regular locks. The small traditional locks, you want to still kind of keep to your bricklay and stacked like Microlocs. But when you're now dealing with medium to large size traditional locks, this is when in the whole head you have like maybe if it's medium, you're going to have maybe 100 to 125 locks. If they're large, you might have about 75 locks when you're done. And then the big size, they're called wicks. I personally don't like them. They're really big, like really, really, really big. And those, maybe the whole head, you might have 20 Yeah, 15 or 20. Apparently they're a big deal in Florida.
Yeah, oh yes. Oh yes. So
Apparently.
that's it.
Apparently, so
Is that the one that looks flat?
yes.
Yeah.
Because you can't really have it round,
No.
right? Because of the
Like,
size.
Like they, I don't know what you call it. Like they keep on tricking it to make it look flat, but I don't know what that.
That's the look, I guess, because they're so big.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you start, getting into those bigger sizes, then the diamonds or the triangle are the ones that make sense because there are going to be so many holes, right? If you do this stacked, it's not going to look right. So whenever, you have the medium or large, then you have more of the diamond parts. And it's really nice too when you do the reties or the palm roll, then the beauty of the parts really come out, right? The bricklay is also really good when you have a client with fine hair, right? Yeah, because it reduces the spaciness of the locks and distributes them evenly throughout the head. So we're going to talk a little bit about about the methods. So now, your client has come, you assess the hair, the hair type, you look at the scalp, the density, all these things. So based on that, maybe you've talked about they're taking care of dandruff or whatever. Maybe they're getting a moisture treatment. So you've done all of that. Then the next step, you're going to decide what size you guys are going to, go with, because you have a feel of their texture, you have a feel of their curl pattern and their density. Before you start, you want your client to wash their hair. Now, because we talked about you guys are not going to wash, or you can wash, it's up to you. If you're going to wash the client's hair, you have to do 2 clarifying shampoos. Okay? So you're going to have to purchase a clarifying shampoo to get rid of whatever buildup they have. A purifying shampoo is cleansing. You know how before we talked about a dandruff shampoo to take care of dandruff? So a purifying shampoo is going to strip your hair of any impurities, any oils, any excess oils, any dust, but it's designed to do an extra job than your regular shampoo, right? So, but I'm assuming you are doing it, right? If you decide to do it professionally, you want to do 2 clarifying shampoos before you start the service. If you're advising your client, you're going to tell them, please wash your hair and do it 3 times because it's whatever they have at home. You can't tell them to go and buy clarifying shampoo. Well, they're preparing to come and lock their hair, right? So it's whatever they have at home. It's whatever they have at home. Because when they come to you, you're going to recommend something. Just because you're not washing their hair doesn't mean you can't sell a product. That's not illegal, right? You don't have to be licensed to sell somebody a product, right? So, but they're coming to you, so you're going to tell them to wash their hair with whatever they have at home. So 2. But if you're doing it, you're going to have to invest in a clarifying shampoo, and you're going to do 2 clarifying shampoos, right? After you do the 2 clarifying shampoos, you're going to do 1 moisturizing shampoo. And then you'll use a light conditioner. This is the only time you use conditioner because you're about to start and you need to detangle their hair. So a really light conditioner. If they're doing it at home, just tell them, do 3 shampoos and condition and detangle your hair. And no oils. And they're not going to put anything after that. If you want to guarantee your service, you can offer that shampoo. for the client. But remember, you're starting the install. It's going to make the day long, right? So this is where you use your own discretion of what you want to do. But sometimes clients ask if, they can get their hair washed here. I never say no, right? Or sometimes clients will forget. Maybe, we missed that step. We didn't talk about, prepping the hair, and then they're gonna come with your hair dirty. If they come with their hair dirty, you cannot start it. You have to wash it. Okay, please do not start any new locks on dirty hair. It has to be clean. Has to be clean. Because from the day they do their locks, they might not wash their hair for like another month or so, right? So you want to make sure you're starting them off on the right track. And if they had something in their hair, it's going to itch, it's going to do all kinds of things. So it's just not a good starting experience, right? So we're going to assume you've done all of that. You've talked about the shampooing. Now we're going to talk about the different lock foundations, right? Both Microloc and regular locks, right? So the first one we're going to talk about 7 methods, okay? But remember, I don't want to confuse you guys. I said with Microlocs there are only 3 methods, but we're talking about locks in general. There's 7 methods. So the first one is the comb coil. You guys are familiar with that one? Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty easy. We always do that from wet hair, right? The hair has to be wet, and you have to use something like a gel, right? The Talia Wajid is really, really good for starting locks. A water-based gel, not your edge control type gel, right? It has to be like a water-based gel, something that's designed and formulated for locks, because it won't flake, it won't itch. It'll just give like a good amount of hold. Another really good one to use is mousse, the Nairobi mousse. That's really good. It has good hold. So as far as products, and when you do the comb coil, you have to make sure you do it all the way to the end. If you stop halfway, that place you're gonna stop is not gonna lock. It's not gonna form. Okay, unless see with her braid, see how the ends are curly. Unless you want that, but then you don't want to be doing a comb coil anyways. You want to use a different method if this is the look you're looking for. Okay. So for this, you're going to use a lock-in gel. You do it when the hair is wet. So you always start this service with a shampoo or wet hair, but we don't want to do it on dirty hair, right? So that's the first method. The second method is the 2-strand twist. So this is what we do like 80-90% of the time, right? So this is great on all hair lengths. It doesn't really matter how long the hair is. If the hair is short, you can still do it. The disadvantage again of the twist is it's mainly for tighter curls, right? So like a 4C, a 3C, right? Anything C, it's better, to do it on a C. But like a 2A, 2 is like wavy. You can't do a 2-strand. It's not gonna last. Or like a wavy kind of curl. It's not gonna last. Like a wavy curl. Anything wavy, you don't want to do a 2-strand. If you have like a 3 is like a big curl, but it's a big wave. That's like a 3A. Like a big wave. Like, like a body wave kind of. You can't do a 2-strand. It's not gonna stay. It's really best for like a 3C, like a 4B, I think you said you have a 4B, right? Yeah, a 4B and a 4C. 2 strands are really good for these 3 textures. 3C, 4B, 4C. Okay. Now, whenever you start with a 2-strand twist, especially with microlocs, you want to start it off with a braid first. Always for microlocs, please do not just twist. Okay, I'm begging you. It'll unravel. It'll unravel and it'll join with the neighbors. They'll become friends, you know? They will hang out. And your grid is gone. Right? So you always start it off with a braid. Maybe 3, 4, you know? 2 is too little, right? 3 or 4 or more if you want. But around 3 or 4. You don't want it too much, right? It shouldn't be more than, I'll say 1.5 inches. Like, so from here to here. This is if you're starting it on natural hair. Always start your 2-strand twist with a braid if you're doing microlocs.
But if it's traditional,
no,
it's twist.
Yes,
Okay.
Right? But if you're doing a traditional lock and that's a size anything bigger than 1 inch, you can just start with your twist. It's fine. It's just with microlocs. They will slide. Okay, so then the next method is the interlock method. So the interlock method is what we normally use to do your regrowth when your microlocs are growing, right? And we do the interlock method with the latch hook. You can do it with this, tool here, the needle. Or you can do it with this one. I personally don't know how to do it. Do you guys know how to do it? With this one? You know how to use this one? Yeah, so there's a skill to this one, right? I haven't mastered it yet. These are my 2 favorites, right? If I want to move, if there's a lot of growth, I'm going to use this one. If the growth is not a lot, I'll use this one. It's a needle, interlock needle, I would call it. I don't think it has a name really. Just an interlock needle.
But would you recommend it even if you have like long hair with that?
This one?
Yeah.
But
do you feel it's gonna...
See, to me, that's why most people don't like this one, right? But I have a client, she has sister locks and her hair is long, it's down to the middle of her back. I can't use this.
No? Okay.
It snags. Yeah. This one, I breeze through it.
Yeah.
Because it's just once I have to put the hair in and I'm going to fold it like just a third and everything else is long. And then I just go in there. Okay. Right? So these are things you're going to develop with doing. And you're going to have your own personal favorite. Yeah. You might find that this one you like because the ones that most of the people that know how to use this one, this is their preferred tool. Right? And most of them say 2 hours, they're done with the retie.
I've heard. Yeah, with that.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I hear. So, might be worth your time learning how to, use this one. You're going to get it. So, practice. Yeah. Right? So, so the way interlocking works is you're basically looping the hair under in a 4-point system. So the first way you're going to put your hair, you always start this way and then you loop the hair, you bring it out. I'm going to show you tomorrow. So you start this way, then you go that way, and that way. So you're going clockwise, but you always start here and you always end there, right? Yes, it'll be easier when I show it to you. Right? And what that's going to do is the hair there's one method, let's say one method. One direction is where the tool is going, then the other direction is where the hair is going, right? The tool is going this way, but the hair is going that way, in the opposite direction. So it can be a bit confusing in the beginning. So that's the reason why I'm starting by showing you just the tool, right? But always remember that the direction the tool is going in is opposite to the direction the hair is going in.
Oh, okay.
Because you just put it here to go and get the hair to bring it back. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I probably have to see it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to see it. But I have to start by explaining. So when you see it, you're gonna be like, right?
Because it's that tool, but not with the needle.
Both. No. Yes, you're right.
Exactly, that's what I'm
Yes. So this one follows the hair.
Yeah, that's what
This goes in the direction the hair is going in.
Yes.
Right? But this is going in the opposite direction the hair is going to go into, because this is just going to collect the hair and bring it back out. Right? So do you see that question you said? Well, isn't this slower? Well,
So
you're doing a double job. You're putting it in and coming out. I'm just going in and going in. You see that? So I tend to go faster just this because I'm just going in and out, in and out. But here I'm going to get the hair out. I'm going to go get the hair out. I'm going to bring it and I'm going to bring it. So I feel like I'm doing a double all the time, right? Whereas this one, I'm just going.
Yeah, that's what I'm used to.
Yeah. So experiment with the different tools and then see which one. First of all, you time it. You commit to the tool and then you time yourself, right? And then you compare. Okay, when I use this one, I took 3 hours. And then also pay attention to your body and how your hand is feeling, right? Because you're doing double work with this one. But it's what we know. It's common. Before this was invented, this was there, so we're just used to this, right? And that's the thing too about this one is you're putting it there, but you have to wrap the hair around and bring it back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You go like that, wrap it, bring it. So all of them is a different movement. So once you figure it out, then you're gonna know what works for you. So these are good for your reties. Right? But when you're starting your microlocs, now we just talked about the root. Now, if you're starting the hair, this is going to be easier while I'm showing you. When you start your braid, you start from the roots to the end. When you're interlocking, you start from the ends to the root. Right? It's the opposite way. So when you're starting, you're just going to use your hands, right? In the 4 points that we talked about. You use this hand, you go this way, you go that way, then you switch to this hand, you go this way, and you go that way. So if you notice there's not enough room, don't force a 4-point system. You're going to do a 2-point.
Okay, that's okay.
Right? So that you end it down. First of all, nobody's going to school you. Nobody's watching you, right? Nobody's watching you. You're just on your own doing your thing, right? You're going to have to be committed to providing your client the best thing possible by yourself without anybody watching over you, right? And so basically the thing that's going to give you the best lock is the 4-point. The 4 will give you more opportunity because it's equal. Think about it. Now, when they do 2, they're just coming from here and here. Only on this side. What about this side and that side? What's going to happen to that side? Right?
Makes sense.
What's going to happen to these other side? So you don't have a full robust infrastructure, to say that. Think of it as a building. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, so when you do it too, you always would have just stayed on the one side.
Yeah, you're staying on one side. Here and here. Here and here. Right?
Not 3.
Well, you're doing here, here, and the top. That's better.
So you can still get a full look.
Yeah, well, you can. I mean, they're microlocs. They're so tiny. Nobody's gonna really bring a microscopic thing and check. So there's on the one side there's theory, and then on the other side there's the practical side, right? But what's going to happen is you're going to look at somebody's locks and you're just going to be like, I like these ones. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to know why. Mm-hmm. They just look nice. If you have to pick, you're going to pick something. That's the reason. It's only on that final look. I don't know how else to explain this. Think of a baker. Who knows what recipe they're using? It's all in the taste. Mm-hmm. And in the preference. Some people do prefer the other ones, right? So we can't really say this is the best recipe for making cakes. But generally, we know how a cake should taste.
Or there's a healthier cake and there's a...
Not healthy cake. Exactly. So when you're learning something, my philosophy is learn the best, make your adjustment. That's my philosophy. Learn the best thing, but make your adjustment to suit your taste. You know, they say the house that was built on the rock is the house that really stood the winds and this and that, but the house that was built on the top, it wasn't sturdy. Do you get it? It's still a house. You still lived in it. It was still perfect. But one had a better foundation than the other. Do you get what I mean? So I'm saying strive for the best foundation. Wherever you land is okay, but strive for the best, right? At least in your work, if most of it is structured properly, if you have a few here and there that are not, it's not going to make that much of a difference, right? So if you can, do the 4-point. But like I said, nobody's policing you, right? At the end of the day, it's what you choose to do. This is where pricing comes into play, okay? Like imagine having a person with straight hair and you're interlocking it, you're going to see all the grids and they're not going to go anywhere, right? For somebody with straight hair, we wouldn't recommend the interlock method. We would recommend the instant lock. And that's when we're going to create a lock with this one, right? With the crochet needle, right? So anything wavy, we want to stay away from it. It's almost like the twist, right? The curlier the hair, the more texture the hair, then the better the result. But when you come in to get it maintained, we could still do the interlock, because all these methods we're talking about with the microlocks, we only use the interlock method to maintain the root. Right? It's only with the bigger traditional locks where we have options of the palm roll and the crocheting. Okay? So the advantage of the interlocks is that it locks the hair in and it lasts longer than the twist, actually. And you can be a little less careful when you're washing your hair. Now, we don't really do a lot of interlock when we start our locks because it's very restrictive, I find, starting your hair with interlocks, especially if you want the ends to be curly, because you have to start that method on the ends. So if you're wanting more texture and flexibility, you're doing either the braid or the twist. So that's what we do. We've never actually done an interlock from start to finish.
Do you feel like this take more time than anyone?
It does take more time too. And it's going to cost more. And this is the method they use for the sister locks, right? That's why it's more expensive. And that's why they're very strict. You see how much time we just spent on the interlock stuff? It gets technical. It gets super technical. Yeah. Takes hours.
Yeah, hours.
Like when we do extensions, we take 2 days. It's 2 days just on your natural hair with the interlock method, right? But you want to know how to do it because you might have clients that'll ask you for that. There's nothing wrong with it. You just have to be very, very serious with it and meticulous about it if you want the benefits of the look, right? So the reason I chose not to do sister locks again is because they're very strict and very restrictive. I like texture, with locks. I like flexibility. I don't like to put people like in a box. But basically the sister lock method is the interlocking method. That's what it is. So you're going to have a lot of clients asking you, what are sister locks?
I know.
That's going to be your number one question. What's the difference between sister locks and microlocks? It's the method. The interlock method locks the hair in and it lasts longer than twists. And you can, clients can be a little less careful when washing their hair as compared to the twists. But they still want to braid and band, right? So when we talk about shampooing, we'll talk about that when we deal with maintenance, right? The first shampoo we talked about is just a regular prep before we start the service. So later we're going to talk about the shampoo we do before a maintenance. Okay. So the next method is the braids. The braid method. Everybody knows the braid method. The advantage is that it doesn't unravel. Once it's in, they're set for life, right? They're cleaner, they're smoother, they're less frizzy, right? I think this is the only method I'm seeing a lot of advantages, but traditional locks kind of look the best with the twist method, right? But it has the most disadvantages. However, it produces the best lock. And the reason is twisting is about matting and frizzing and locking. That's the reason why. Now a braid, even though I told you all these advantages, the hair is not gonna frizz, it's not gonna mat, it's not gonna, do all of that stuff. And we're seeing the grid, we're actually seeing a braid pattern. But if you keep these braids, over 2-3 years, they're gonna start looking like locks. Yeah. Over a long period of time, they start to look like locks. So some people really want to start, we do a lot of them actually, braid locks, and to be honest, I really like them. And I gotta be honest. Yeah, I like them. I do like them because, it's stress-free for the client.
It is though.
Right?
Yeah.
They're not going to really stress that much. The way they're going to really stress in those first 6 months with the twists, when you compare the two, but then, once the client gets over that 6-7 month hump with the twist, then they're going to like it. So if you educate your clients and really let them know what they're going to expect, then it's going to be better. But the reason why I like the braid locks is, one, they don't shrink. Twists shrink. Right? Once you put in the braid and the hair is here, it's just gonna stay there. But once you twist the hair, it's gonna go up. So, and then same thing with the interlock, it doesn't shrink as much. It shrinks, but not like a twist. But that's the beauty of the twist, right? Because it allows the hair to naturally do whatever it wants to do. And with the interlock, you're still seeing a grid somewhat, but it's not as defined as a braid. Now back to you, how you were talking about the 2 points. When you do the 2 points, it looks more like a braid. Does it make sense? Because it's just two. Think about it. When you braid, it's just two things. You're going like this, right? So when you do a 2-point interlock, it looks more like a braid. But when you do a 4-point interlock, it looks like a basket weave, because you have 4 points that you're going around. So that's just to add, to that. So all of them eventually are going to look nice. They're just going to be different in their niceness, right? a lot of, advantages. But when everybody's locks have matured in 2 to 3 years, you're not going to know the difference between this one and that one. It's just when you start them that everything is so visible, right? Now, unfortunately, most people are not patient enough to last to that 3 years, right? Some people you'll hear, they'll say, oh, I started it in, after a year I got tired. Or 2 years I got tired. Oh, it was like this. I'm like, well, locks are a journey. So when we go through the consultation phase, we're going to talk about the different stages of locks, right? You have to educate your clients too about that. If it's not in your chair, you have to be doing it on your social media, right? You have to be educating your clients. So whatever post you're posting, it's not just a post about a pretty picture. It's a post about you're educating your clients. So by the time they sit in your chair, they really know about, the locks. They just want you to help them now to start your journey. So remember, like I said before, always try to be a solution provider. And so the next one I'm going to add is always try to be an educator, a solution provider and an educator as well on top of that. This is how you're going to attract clients to you, right? The social media is going to do all the work for you. All your content is going to do all the work. And then you're just going to focus on delivering the service. So the disadvantage with the braids is you'll always see the grid pattern. Like I said, it'll take a good 2-3 years before all the grids disappear. And this is when they have swollen and they're thicker. Locks will swell and thicken faster than braids. And also they're going to go through stages and phases. They're going to be frizzy. They're going to bud. They're going to be pregnant. I don't know if you've heard of that term before, right? They'll have little nodules along the way, but that's all normal. It's all part of, the pull and tug.